Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to the main stage for our next panel starting now. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to the main stage for our next panel starting now, powered by Group Black. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to the main stage for seating for our next panel, brought to you by Group Black. Hey Thomas, can we get the title card? Title card on the. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna come grab them. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to the main stage for seating for our next panel, brought to you by Group Black. Sorry, Ashley.
Oh, ça coûte que 900 euros, c'est pas grave.
Welcome, welcome. How's it go? How y'all doing tonight? Everybody doing good? Where's the energy? Where's the energy? How y'all doing today? Y'all ready for a great conversation? All right, sounds great. Well, today we have a great conversation brought to you by Group Black. I'm going to introduce everyone and let them come onto stage. Today our conversation will be about embracing the influence of Black culture, media, and democracy. First up, we have Travis, the CEO and co-founder of Group Black. Richard Lou Dennis, co-founder and chairman of Group Black and founder of Essence Ventures. And we have Derek Johnson, president of NAACP, and hosted and moderated by Miss Ashley.
Do you need a glass? Hi, everyone. I am Ashley Banks, the SVP of Revenue over at Group Black. I'm so excited to be here at Inkwell Beach. We are going to have a real discussion about the critical intersection of Black culture, media, and democracy, while emphasizing the need to nurture a media landscape that champions inclusivity and equitable representation. Just to give a little bit of background, Black people make up nearly 14% of the American population, but as we know, the impact of Black culture extends well beyond that 14%. I mean, look at us at Cannes right now, today. Black culture notoriously influences all corners of society, from art to music to fashion to media. However, that influence does not translate into economic power, and we have to close that tremendous gap. Additionally, there is a strong responsibility for media to bolster the democracy by providing diverse perspectives, which is why I'm so happy to be at Group Black, because we believe that it is important to change the face of media ownership while also investing in Black and diverse-owned media. The current imbalance of the support for Black-owned media is a threat to our democracy, and it assists in the systemic silencing of diverse voices. So today we're gonna talk about how we can change that. We're here today with the NAACP to discuss the ways that we can close the gap and be more purposeful about making our outsized impact materialize into real financial gain for the BIPOC community, including our media publishers and our creators. So today, we have President Derek Johnson of the NAACP. Yes, I mean, this is amazing. The NAACP, to discuss the ways that we can close the gap and be more purposeful. And we know that they work with so many people in America today. It's the largest and oldest civil rights movement. And we're really fighting for all the rights of people in our country. And then we also have Black co-founder and chairman, Richard Lou Dennis, who also serves as the founder and CEO of Essence Ventures. And of course, we have Travis Montague, my boss, and the co-founder and CEO of Group Black. So I just want to get into the first question. To each of you, who do you look to as inspiration when it comes to creating access for BIPOC people in America?
So I'll kick that off. Actually, and I'm not just saying it because he's sitting here on the stage. This man right here has been one of the most inspirational people to me in my career. And watching Rich build businesses that at the core help this community has been incredible. I mean, what he's done with Sundial and Shay, and how he put thousands of women in school in Africa. What he continues to do with the New Voices Fund, what Essence represents in the world, has been all about helping the Black community. And so Rich helped back me in my first company when I left college, right? And so, starting Group Black as a business to help drive economic inclusion for the Black community was something that was made easier by just watching great examples from Rich and learning from Rich in the process. So Rich has been a really big inspiration to me, and I don't know who you learned from, but
No. Panel over. You can go home now. No, it's actually, Travis, for me, it's actually the inverse, right? It's also watching young black people build things that nobody expects them to build and deliver results that nobody expects them to deliver. And so for me, there's no greater joy than watching you guys that we've had the good fortune of being able to partner with deliver. Whether it's, and I'm looking out in the audience and I see quite a few of you guys here and you. And so I, as crazy as it may sound, I probably get the most inspiration from watching the people running the businesses that we're associated with, or just young black people running and building businesses, period. Because I believe at my core that the only way we're going to solve the issues in our communities is through ownership of equity. And the dollars that come from those activities is the ones that will change what health in our outcomes in our community is, what educational outcomes in our communities are, what social outcomes in our community are, what crime outcomes in our community are, what mental health outcomes in our community are, right? All of those things are tied to economics, right? And so, you know, my partner at Sundial would say, Emmett Dennis would say, the revolution must be financed. And so making sure that these businesses do extraordinarily well so that the capital can then go back into funding the solutions is where it's at for me. But I get my inspiration from you and Stacy and Charles and Ryan out there who I see, and all the folks that are out here, Mike back there, all the folks that are out here that are really doing things that people don't expect them to do. And then lastly, you know, there's this gentleman here and the men and women like him who have put their lives on the line, put their careers on the line to make sure that we have a fair and equitable playing field for generations now, right? And the decisions, yeah. And the decisions that they have to make and the sacrifices that they make for their families in order that our communities are better places to live, you cannot put a price tag on that. So Derek, you and all your peers, Mark, Reverend Jackson, all the people that have been out here fighting for us all these years and clearing the field for us, know that you are an inspiration, not just to me, but I'm sure to all the folks here. And then lastly, biggest inspiration for me in life is my mother. So
thank you. Let's give a hand to Rich. I want to be clear, Rich. You can tell Reverend Sharpton and Mark I'm much younger than them, so, you know, it's different.
I couldn't tell, though.
Hey, there you go. So inspiration for me is the history of success in our community. We oftentimes think that what we're doing now is something new and innovative, but if we look deep into our successful track record, much of what we're seeing we've done before, but we have not aligned the things together. Business, informing culture, advocacy, and entertainment. 4 key components for me, right? So when you think about Frederick Douglass, he was advocacy, but he also understood the importance of imagery. That's why he was the most photographed person during his lifetime, so he could project the imagery of a dignified, well-educated black man. Paul Robeson, he understood advocacy, and he was a great entertainer. He understood that the platform he stood on, he also had to educate his community about their rights and their agency. If you think about people like James Brown, he was crazy as hell, great entertainer, but he owned everything. So it's intersecting points. I think now we are at a unique place where you see a Rich Lou who can create a successful business model, but also understand that that business model is linked to black women. And to speak to her, he needed to lean into essence, to speak to her. But in speaking to her, he also appreciated the value of entertainment with the Essence Festival. And with that, our relationship is an advocacy reality that comes out of that so we can influence the quality of life through public policy and corporate behavior. And so for me, it's not one person or one era or one movement. It is our ability now to merge those things. And for the NAACP, we understand that art is advocacy. How we are seen on the screen is how we are treated in public policy. It's how we are treated in the streets, and that treatment is directly related to the power we bring to bear, both in votes and in money. So it's all connected to under one umbrella.
So, can
Hey, Ashley, I have a question.
yes.
Is it by design that they got you on an island?
I know. I'm like, why
I'm
am
like-
I so far away from
I was
y'all?
thinking that too. I was like, is this
Did
a
Travis
stage?
do something?
I mean, I was like, am I in trouble? What's going on?
No, I was like, this stage setup is interesting.
Well, you know, if all else fails, we have wine. So I would love to expand upon what you were just talking about, because you're doing this in your daily work today. So I would love to just hear about what you feel is the responsibility of media to actually uphold our democracy.
Well, you know, that's a great question. And oftentimes that question, among others, is upside down. Media's responsibility is return value to their shareholders. It's our responsibility to hold media accountable on how they reflect us and the opportunities that are provided, both behind the scenes, in front of the camera, and in the deal flow. And so it is really important for us. I love Charles King's and Stacey King's motto. They are raising the funds to finance projects that we own. That's important. That's a part of the deal flow we had not been engaged in before. We need to understand the entertainment industry and with a 360-degree view. We are cultural influencers. We can go to China, and a young man of Chinese descent can rap Wu-Tang Clan, know every lyric. Because we can influence culture. What we have not been able to do is influence media to be accountable to our needs and interests, project the right imagery. It is embarrassing, unfortunate, and sad that I can go, you name one of the 50-plus countries in Africa, and their understanding of an African American is based on the movie Boys of the Hood or some other movie.
Right?
Or our understanding of who you name a country in Africa, when they come to the States, we have a certain image of them because the media culture and entertainment culture have created these schisms among the diaspora. We have to control and hold accountable.
Of course. And I think to that point, we've been standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, I know that I don't look like it, but I actually remember the Great Whiteout of 1999 when there were 26 shows of a full lineup that was put out into the universe without having any person of color in leading or starring roles. And the NAACP had to step in and do what you do and advocate on behalf of us and get the television networks to sign a memorandum of understanding so that we could actually hold these networks accountable.
And let me add to that. And that's on the
Yes.
backdrop of 7 years of the #1 show on broadcast, The Cosby Show, and then they did a whiteout in 1990. In the backdrop of a different world, which increased enrollment in HBCUs, and then they did a whiteout. Sometimes it's not about the business, it's about control, and we need to hold them accountable so they don't control how we see each other and how individuals view us.
Yeah,
So-
but I think, sorry.
No, please.
But
please.
I think what you're nailing on is what. So this is the second year of the Inkwell Group Black Beach. I've sat on and been to many panels. I go to Davos, many panels. I go to South by, many panels. 99% of those panels are focused on solving these issues, right? Which leaves no time for us to develop and grow our minds around what the future is going to look like. So we're constantly going backwards. We win big, You think you got 7 years of the #1 show? Take it away, let's go start over. You build a business, do great this generation, next generation, starting over. You get everywhere you go. Until we get to the place of where we're owning these businesses, we're always subjected to what somebody wants to control. And what, you know, there's an old African proverb, until the lion learns how to write, the hunter will always be the hero. Because he's the one who writes the story about what happened during the, you know, he doesn't talk about how his gun was so much more powerful and how there were 20 of them tracking one animal, and that never gets told, right? It's only the heroic part. So I think what I'm going to impart upon our Group Black team here for next year and for everywhere else that we go is we're actually going to focus on what is the amount of time that we're going to spend belly aching about the problems that we have, and what is the amount of time that we're going to actually spend plotting about the solutions that we're going to go execute together. Because if you stand here and you take all the people in this room and all the conversation wasn't about where we're constantly trapped, but hey, here's what we're going to do outside of this trap, I think the transformation that we drive in this marketplace, in this economy, and in this society becomes extraordinarily powerful very, very quickly. So I think the question is one that has really been sort of inside of me brewing. Like, damn, like all of these minds here, what am the stuff we're talking about, I know it, right? And I think everybody here knows it. And collectively, we've now come to know it together, right? It's been a few years, we've come to know it together. I want to now get to the future.
And I'll add one thing to that, too. And I want to go, and that was awesome, Rich. I think I want to go back to that ownership piece, right? Because what you're seeing, and you see it over and over and over again, is lack of ownership makes it very difficult to change the systems that exist today, right? And so as we at Group Black are navigating through the media industry today, there are so many inherent designs that make it really difficult for the companies that we work with to advance. And that's why you have those situations where because you don't own it, because you can't pinpoint and actually execute the changes that need to occur for advancement to proceed, we have this year over year over year over year not making progress. There shouldn't be a situation where we say 1%, 1%, 1% for 10 years, right? Like, things grow, but it just hasn't grown here, right? And so I'm really, really pushing so hard on our community to continue to think about ownership and thinking about, like, even when from a capital raise perspective, yes, raise capital, but try to grow your business so you can keep more of your ownership.
Thank you. So we know that all three of you are doing the work today. Travis, I would love for you to talk about what you're doing with Crater, just in that vein of what you were just speaking to, and how you're making a more equitable universe for diverse creators.
Yeah. So the inequities that we see in Black-owned media also exist in the creator economy, and probably even more scaled. And so we just did the Nielsen study that we announced earlier this week that showed Black creators are driving 10.5 times the media value across key categories than their counterparts. However, they get paid 35% less, right? One of the creators we work with is Kabi Lame, right? #1 most followed TikToker in the world. Not even top 10 paid, right? The #1, like bigger than everybody on the whole platform. Not even the top 10 most paid. Not even close, right? And so how does that happen, right? How do we put ourselves, how are these creators coming into a situation where they're driving the culture and the influence and building these platforms? They're the fuel, but they're not earning the appropriate share for what they're contributing. And so with Crater, the mission has been very simple. It's to drive more value for creators than ever before by putting the creators first. And it's what's really exciting to me about this opportunity is with the creator economy is that We're moving into a world where media is being more decentralized to individuals, right? These creators have more followings and audience and influence than some of the largest media companies out there. And so if we equip these creators with the tools and help them think about themselves as businesses, we could shift how the content that people are consuming at scale. If you look at the amount of content that's consumed by by individuals, 39% of all content that is consumed by individuals 18 and up is from creators. And if you look at 13 to 17, that number grows to 59%. So 59% of all the content that kids are watching today are coming from creators. And so helping, and as this is what Rich is talking about, thinking what's next, if that's where the trend is heading, how do we make sure that that area, that system, that next wave of media and content is designed with more equity than the genres before?
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that I want us to start focusing on as a community, right? What's next and how we get there, and how do we leverage each other to unlock the path to getting there, right? And I think, Derek, I think the work that you guys do is going to be critical in that, because the more of this, the more of these stumbling blocks that you guys take on, right, the more time we in this world have to focus on what's next. Like if we imagine if we had a full day of panels talking about what are the different ways that we can build infrastructure to have black creators monetize at the same rate as white creators. How much more productive and how much more effective would this day have been, right? Or if we're sitting here saying, all you media companies here that are trying to break into the P&Gs and all of these places, and we're talking about all the reasons and the needs to do that, what if we sat around talking about, here are the 4 or 5 AI tools that we're going to demand that P&G invest in and gives to each one of the companies here, that they may then transform their business using those tools to be able to serve them better, right? Then we start to unlock extraordinary amounts of value and amounts of dollars, right? Yeah. And so I just think, like, the two are not separate. We need you, and we need organizations like yours to give us the bandwidth to go do this. And then you do that, and we do this, and then we take the money that comes out of that and support your organization, which we're not doing today.
That's about all of us knowing our role. We're an advocacy organization that value the arts, because arts is advocacy. They're creators who understand the need for advocacy. And if we have that conversation where everyone knows their role and recognize we're not in competition. Our plate is too small if we're talking about competing against each other when there's a whole buffet over there that we should be eating off of. And far too often, creatives see themselves as competition. Let me get the meeting with that company. And I went up and down this strip, and I'm looking at these conglomerate operations with multiple media companies under this umbrella, get at the buffet line, eating well. And we have this small dish, and we're fighting over the crumbs that's on the dish. We all must know our role and recognize that we're not in competition with one another.
So I know that the NAACP is working out of Los Angeles on these solutions. So can you give us a little bit more detail of what you're working on today with the Bureau and how you're trying to change that for Hollywood?
So the Hollywood office now, we opened it in 2000 in the backdrop of the 1990 letter and been multiple letters. And our goal was to figure out how can we open up diversity in the entertainment industry. And some success, not where it should be. But since that time, we've repurposed the Image Awards. We're building out so it can be Image Week so that we can see ourselves in all of the lines that week, from fashion to hair to makeup. We also have a joint venture for-profit deal with CBS Studios to do content. Sheila Ducksworth, who is there. I think we sold a few projects. Hopefully, the first one will be on air 2024. That's all about getting in the space of creating the content, owning the content, and driving the conversation differently than how it's driven now. It's one thing to say you all should do, it's another thing with us doing. Robin Harris is there. We're opening up a podcasting studio and a screen. So those creators who are doing short form, they have a place to come to do the creation, because that studio will be open, I think, September, Robin, or soon? August, right? So, those are some of the things that we are venturing into, but staying true to our mission. We're an advocacy organization to influence the formation of public and corporate policy.
Absolutely, and it mirrors and parallels really well with what Rich is doing over with the New Voices Fund. I would love to hear about how your organization is working to close the gap of access, but also providing visibility for diverse creators and fueling BIPOC-owned media.
I mean, I think, our sort of, and this is a perfect example of how these different roles can tie in together to build much, much greater things. So we're now on Fund 3, which is approaching $400 million. So by the time that is done, we would have deployed somewhere north of $500 million to Black entrepreneurs over the past 5 years in this
I know.
market.
Can we pause and just clap for that?
And out of which has already come almost 40 Black millionaires over that period of time. The objective is to make sure that you see the scale of dollars, but you build the infrastructure to support those entrepreneurs, because we oftentimes think of it as the problem being the capital. And you may or may not like hearing this, the problem is not the capital. Many times when we get the capital, we're still stuck and we don't get the value out of that capital that we should, because we don't have the infrastructure to support us, we don't have the ecosystems to support us, we don't have the access to markets, to consumers, to buyers. So if you think about what's happening here, and everybody comes in and get really excited because you can walk down the street and you can run into any buyer from any company on any day. It's possible here, right? That's not access, that's happenstance, right? Access is getting into the check signing process here, where when you come here, it's a matter of now we're signing the deal. We're closing the deal. It's not, I meet you, I give you my business card and hope you call. Or you meet me, you tell me how great I am, and we did a project together. It was a $1 million project. You tell me how great it was. You arrange for me to be on a stage. We talk about that, and then that's it, right? So that $1 million project doesn't turn into 10, doesn't turn into 20, doesn't turn into 100. It's $1 million, but now you can parade me around the country and say how great you are because of what you did, right? So, my uncle always used to tell me, he said, you got to decide if you want to be a poor millionaire or a rich millionaire. $1 million projects, poor millionaire. 10, 20, $50 million projects a year, rich millionaire. I'd much rather be that. So we want to use our capital and use our expertise and our access to create those types of opportunities and create those types of environments. You may say, well, look at this place, right? Inkwell Beach, powered by Group Black. That's Group Black using its capital to provide not just these forums, but meeting rooms, set appointments, drive meetings, hold people accountable, right? So those are the things that's what we try to do with our capital, is more than just say, hey, you think you're going to build this business, you need a $2 million round, you need $500K from us, here's 500. It's, for us, the engagement starts before we actually make the investment. We'll probably take a year, 2 years getting to know a business and a founder before we make the investment. And then when we make the investment, it's a matter of opening up everything that we have access to in order to help you scale and win. And so that's why I'm very concerned about this conversation not being about what the future holds, but being about the challenges that we're facing today. Because those challenges are going to get solved over time or not. You still got to eat tomorrow. You still got to feed your kids tomorrow. We got to get down to the business of business here, right? Not down to reassessing all the issues that we've had, but we can't forget those issues, and that's why it's so important that, how many people here contributed to the NAACP this year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, there's about 100 people here. 12 people here contributed. We need the rest of y'all to write a check. Because then he can go do the work that we need him to do, and we can then go focus on the work that we need to do, right? So get your checkbooks out. Derek, somebody here to take the money?
You counted 12 people, 4 work for the NAACP, 1 is on the board, so thank you all.
So you take those out, right? But we can't expect, so that's the other thing, right? That's the other thing, right? We can't expect our organizations to support us when somebody else is funding it. Because then, who gets to make that decision?
What's interesting, we are funded primarily by working class black people. The #1 revenue streams are people who work every day. They're janitors, they're teachers. High wealth blacks, they abandon NAACP until there's a problem, then they come back.
Until they have a problem.
So they have a problem.
That they need you to solve.
And it blows my mind because the lunch lady who followed me from middle school all the way through law school, I thought she was the same person, although she looked different. She always gave me the extra ice cream sandwich. She gave me an extra slice of pizza. She let me eat although the cafeteria was closed. They're rooting for us. They want us to be successful. My concern, the reason why I do this is because I don't want to abandon them. They live the life they live to give us an opportunity. It's our responsibility to further their dreams and be what they hope we could be. But the sad part of it is that lunch lady who's living off of $9 an hour is who support us, while individuals who are doing well here in Cass, they don't support the very institutions that created the opportunity for us to be here. That's a sad state of our reality.
Well, y'all gonna start changing that.
Yeah. I was just about to say, so please go out and make your donations to the NAACP. And there's something that you just mentioned. There's so much revenue. There are billions of dollars moving right here in Cannes. And we really need to be part of that check signing, whether it's through advocacy groups, whether it's through supporting BIPOC media. So I would love to hear from y'all. What are the ways that brands can really show up and support us? What are the ways that they can truly make impact for BIPOC creators and media?
So, you know what I'm going to say.
I mean, yes, and I love your answer because that directly feeds my family, so please.
So we have to invest, right? We have to invest. And, you know, I have these conversations. I mean, this is what I spend most of my days doing, having conversations with brands, flying all around the world country to really help them understand the importance of investing in this community. And one of the things that I also have to impress upon brands is they're like, yes, we're advertising to the black community. Well, when you're advertising to the black community, you're just trying to get dollars out of the community, right? But you're not reinvesting in the community, right? And so you have to really focus on investing with intentionality because it fuels everything. Media ad dollars are is the fuel that drives the media that's out there today, right? And so literally the dollars that are going into, the way they spend their dollars is what's driving the narratives that are out in the world and the perceptions and the stereotypes and all those things. if we stopped funding sports, if advertisers and sponsors stopped funding sports, sports wouldn't be as big of a business as it is today, right? So if advertisers fund and support and invest in black-owned media businesses, you'll have a lot more of it. You'll have real accurate portrayals of the community in all of its different ways. Instead of a very monolithic way of looking at the black community. And so it's really important, not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's also what is driving the whole conversation economically.
Rich, Derek, would you like to?
I love your comment. Advertising to the black community is about extraction, but advertising with the black community is about empowering. And I think that's all should be said. Because at this conference, we need to be clear that it's the images that's been projected, but it's the investment that's being made. And that investment should not be a one-street transaction. It should be an empowering reality. 1.2 billion Africans on the continent, the fastest growing continent on the globe. The strongest black economy is the U.S., 7th in terms of GDP. The largest African diaspora, Brazil. Afro-Brits are gaining strength every day. We must demand more. And demanding more is more than the pictures on the commercials, it's also the investment in the agencies that we own and the agencies we represent.
I mean, I don't know if we have any other questions after that. So the charge is to make sure that you're supporting our organizations that are supporting our community. You're supporting black-owned media that supports our community so that we can continue to impact culture, but also get paid and impact the GDP. Thanks, everyone. Oh. Do we want to do questions?
Yeah, I think we have a question.
Perfect.
Thank you. So first I have a question for Travis in terms of, action items. Given y'all are here in force and this is like a powerful group with Group Black and others here, when you gave the example of the TikTok influencer, #1 TikTok influencer who is like not in the top 10 being paid, and TikTok is here in terms of advocating for this particular individual. Have y'all had that conversation with the TikTok since they have their senior management here in terms of advocating for this individual? So that's my first question. I have one that's a comment.
Yeah, so we do. So we spend a lot of time. The good thing is that we have a lot of information about what people spend, right? And in different ways. And so I think one of the biggest things that have occurred is the reason why you see these the pay gaps is lack of transparency, right? And because a lot of these creators have come into this, they just started creating something in their kitchen and now they have a business all of a sudden and they're doing stuff. They don't know the right number to ask, right? And so when you don't know the right number to ask, you don't want to offend, right? And so oftentimes you ask for less. And so one of the things that when we work with brands, we make sure that the individual, whether it's a black-owned media company or an individual creator, we're advocating for the appropriate amount of compensation for the value that they're delivering, right? And so that's a big part of it. But also there's just the education piece on the creator side as well, helping them understand what is how does this work, right, in a unique way, and making sure that the compensation that they're getting is appropriate.
I think the other thing is building a different type of business model. As many of you in here are business owners, building a different type of business model that approaches the creators differently or the people that you're trying to do business with differently. Because, from my purview, I get to see a lot. I get to see a lot of different businesses and a lot of different arenas. And the ones that we tend to invest in are the ones who are thinking about solving the problem. Let me rephrase that. Not solving the problem, but building a business similarly. The ones that we tend to invest in are the ones who are solving a problem differently. So many of the people that build businesses come from a similar business. I was at an agency. I picked up all these skills. They took my talent. I don't feel like I got paid enough, or I don't feel like I was going any further in the agency, or there's a big market here that they're missing. You see something different, and you go outside and you set up shop. Oftentimes, they set up the same shop, right? So it's all the things that I learned how to do over here, I'm doing it over here, forgetting what the experience was for them when they were over here. So now you go build a new business on an old model that treats people the same way, all right? You see it in the record industry, you see it in the entertainment industry, you see it in the sports industry, you see it in the media industry, you see it everywhere, right? And so to really solve these problems, right, I think we need to be thinking about the businesses that we're building differently, right? The models need to be different. The way you compensate them need to be different. For example, what you're doing at Group Black and Crater with Kavi is a very different model than what he would have to do if he were working with YouTube or working with TikTok. And that's the other thing is, we can't be afraid to kick these guys' ass. Like, YouTube started somewhere. It wasn't always this monster, right? TikTok started somewhere. Hell, TikTok was a failing business when it was Musically.
Correct.
Right? Like, all of these things start somewhere. You're the place that it starts. So start, and each one of those businesses did something different than what was done before, and different from what the founders that came from other organizations were doing. Economy in Africa. If you put all of those economies together, we're the second largest economy on the planet, right? But we've been interrupted and we've been dispersed, right? It's number one. Then you take the impact of colonialism and the extraction of our resources and our brain power into other parts of the world, right? Which is not even calculated in that, right? Then you take the impact that these random borders set up to facilitate the ownership of the colonial powers of the region. Then you have multiple, not just small economies because of these borders, operating on different currencies, speaking different languages that are not native to the people that come from those lands, but that are imposed upon them by the colonizers. Then you come here, and we can get in, that we know, right? Like, all of the impact here. So I often say, you know, the job that's been done on us is so thorough that black people in America don't understand the impact of colonialism, and black people in Africa don't understand the impact of slavery. And what they don't realize is that it's the same impact, right? The very, very same impact. So what we have to do is to start thinking about how we bring those. We're not going to change the borders overnight, right? We're not going to change the languages overnight. We're not going to do those things. But what we can do is leverage technology to connect economies, right? And start to trade and do business with each other. Therefore, Group Black must be not just in Africa, but must be a global business, right? Our fund, New Voices Fund, has now in the past year invested almost $50 million in African businesses. So we're not just investing here, we're also investing in Kenya and Ghana and, you know, South and right in different places. So we must all be thinking globally, and we must all be thinking about the commonalities of our people as consumers globally, so that we're able to reach them. So to answer your question, yes, we absolutely must be there, and everybody here must be thinking about being there.
That's a Professor Rich special.
Yes, my question is to all of you as panelists to share your thoughts about DEI initiatives. We hear, anybody who's on LinkedIn sees a lot of black color.
I can't. Could you put it up to your? I can't. Hear.
Yeah, stop, sorry. So there were a lot of black and people of color who are appointed to DEI positions, but, I feel as though it's very symbolic. So I want to hear your thoughts about that because it seems that we're really not penetrating and reaching the numbers, and yet everyone's creating all these positions without actually making a difference within their organizations. Thoughts?
I was trying not to go first. I think much of the conversation around DE&I is circular. It is a distraction. It is a manufactured something that is going to change its name in 5 years. Just 5 years ago was another name, 5 years before that, then we called it affirmative action. At the end of the day, companies must decide if they are really going to grow markets. And to grow markets, you have to go black and brown. And to do so, you have to have black and brown people around the table making decisions, because if you don't, you're going to have disruption in your product because you're going to make a mistake. And so all of these conversations around the new buzzword now, is there real commitment to ensure you are penetrating new markets by being inclusive? And are you going to be strategically inclusive by having people from those communities at the decision-making table so you can penetrate those markets? Because when you have an exclusive table, you lose market share and you're going to stump your toe, then I'm going to come see you. But that's how the process goes. So is D&I, it probably was created in somebody's desk at McKinsey, or you named the strategy group. 5 years from now, it's going to be a new buzzword, new buzz phrase. It is all circular. It's a circular conversation. You don't think you're going to come to France and have a new market if you don't have people from France at the table helping you decide how you're going to do it. That's the same reality. Our economy in the U.S. is larger than Canada. Either you want to tap into that economy in a very substantive way, or you want to play around the fringes. And that's the real conversation.
Yeah. And the other way to deal with that is just own your own shit. Right? That's what I did. Worked out for me. That's the other way to address it.
And I'll add one thing too. And one of the things, this is a big part of the work that we do at Group Black. One of the things that we're impressing upon the industry is, like, this is not just a nice thing to do. Economic inclusion as a model is the biggest business opportunity today, right? They're saturated they're over-indexed and oversaturated in all of the other categories that they've been invested in for decades. Once corporations understand that black and brown people is a massive business opportunity, they're going to, this is how the system in the capitalist system, this is how it starts to correct itself, right? When there's money to be made, then they're going to have to do exactly what Derek was talking about, which is figure out how to authentically tap into these communities and opportunity. One, it's the fastest growing community overall, and the spending power of the community is increasing as well at the same time. So that's growth. And so the hope is, and sometimes it's just really sitting them down, it's obvious, but sometimes you gotta sit down and tell people, like, more money, more people. That's where you go, right? And so that is been a key part in how we change the infrastructure of what the industry looks like for the long term.
Yeah, there used to be this restaurant chain that was the fastest growing in the 80s and 90s. That's a shell of itself now. It's called Denny's. And when we got tired of the treatment at Denny's, we quit going. Denny's shrunk. It's a fraction of the size it used to be. That's what we're going to have to do more of.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for your questions. We'll see you out there.
Thank you.
Hello, hello, everyone. Rain or shine, we will go on. Please grab a seat. We will be beginning our session presented by SWAYABLE shortly. If everyone can please grab a seat and save yourself from the rain.
I'm the executive producer at Microsoft at our beach house. Hi, I know that we've had some speakers here. I just never had an opportunity to come and meet my counterpart here. So I've been so busy, but I want to be able to do that because I want to continue to talk partnership, what else we can do more. So who is that person?
So your executive producer.
Yeah.
I guess that would be.
So the one that is in charge and overseeing all this.
I would say it would be Wandering and Ipsy. Sorry, it's a very small team. One of them is HP right there. And then we have a separate team for audio, video.
Yeah.
The team.
Okay.
Separate sound team.
Okay, got it. No, totally understand.
But
Perfect. Okay. I have not.
she's the founder.
Perfect. That's probably who I need to meet.
Okay. Will you be back again at all later? I know you're incredibly busy, so.
Yes, I would absolutely love to. Today, I mean, we're done. We're having our Pride happy hour, and then we're done after that. So I'm happy to come back.
Amazing. So when you come back, I'm sure she'll be here.
Do I need any kind of pass or anything?
No, open beach. You're welcome.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Look at the ladies to be here, and then I'll just run.
Is he that close?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, sounds good. Let's bring them over. Dr. Marcus is here too, right?
Yeah, how did I take them there?
Let me come. Just to the green room, right where you were. Bring them there. They have labs on.
Okay, they have enough.
Yeah. All right, I'll just do a quick introduction. You've already got your mics on, and if I just have you first on the end, and there's water on stage and a monitor in front of you as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, hello, everyone. We are ready for our next session presented by Swayable. If everyone can please grab a seat in front of the main stage. Come on in, everyone. Welcome to Inkwell Beach, and please grab a seat. It is my incredible honor to introduce our next panelists. I'd like to welcome to the stage Maureen Burns from Bain & Company, James from Swayable, Barbara from Insider Inc., and Dr. Marcus from the University of Michigan. They're not working? Sorry, one second.
To the rescue. There it is. All right,
Here we
cool. There
go.
it is.
Yay. This makes me feel more like the talk show host I've always aspired to be. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see the rosé is already flowing, so we're not standing between you and cocktail hour. I am so excited to be here with this esteemed panel, and I'm going to let them give brief introductions. But first, I'm Maureen Burns. I'm a senior partner at Bain & Company. I'm also the author of a book called Winning on Purpose. The book's idea is that the primary purpose of companies is to enrich the lives of those it serves. And so as we talk about trust in AI, it's a topic very near and dear to my heart. James?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Maureen. James Slezak, CEO and co-founder of SWAYABLE. We measure persuasion.
Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to be here with all of you and chatting about AI. My name is Barbara Peng, and I'm the president of Insider, the global news organization. I'm very excited to be chatting about AI with you.
Hi, my name is Marcus Collins. I am a marketing professor at the Ross School of Business, University of Michigan, and the author of the best-selling book For the Culture.
Awesome. Thank you all. So first question, as data and I are becoming more sophisticated, I'm going to go to Marcus with this one. Will human judgment be replaced?
I think no. the more sophisticated the data becomes, it allows us to see a broader aperture of the world, but it's still at a macro level. And if we want to understand people, it's going to take intimacy. And I think that's kind of a problem that we have with data, is that we mistake information for intimacy, but those two things aren't analogous. So the AI would allow us to get closer, but for us to understand the nuances that make us tick, the idiosyncratic things that make us who we are, those quirks that make us who we are, that requires human intimacy. And I think the AI won't get close, at least no time in the near term.
So it's a great point, and it brings up the idea that, as this becomes so much more prevalent, as AI becomes more prevalent, how does that increase the need for trusted platforms and sources? James, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great consequence. People are worried if it's easier to do incredible analysis, if it's easier to generate text, poems, you get more of it. Of course, that's true. And I think that what that means is that you have to trust the source. And if you're either doing reporting or you're generating data, you're going to have to ask the question, where's it coming from, and how do I know this institution shares the values that I do, and I can trust that what I'm getting from it actually is what I need.
Yeah, Barbara, I mean, you've got a newsroom full of reporters, so how are you thinking about that?
I think about this a lot. Really, there is going to be an influx of information and misinformation, and we've seen this before. And people don't have the time to sift through, fact check, or what have you, which just means that they will seek out brands that they can trust, people that they can trust. So that only becomes more and more important in future. So we are excited about this at Insider, and very much leaning into that.
And on that note, we were talking about, oftentimes you'll partner with different people with data and things like that. And has there been a time when, you've done one of those partnerships and it turns out the data that you were getting wasn't really what you thought or wasn't fully complete? And how do you handle that? And especially in this new world where there's going to be probably less human intervention in that, how are you thinking about that as a business leader?
Okay, my background is actually incredibly nerdy. So I'm used to using and looking at data, verifying, the accuracy, where it comes from, asking good questions, and this should be no different. We have to approach this way. There's actually a very funny, example that our global editor-in-chief, Nick Carlson, uses sometimes at the newsroom is when you ask AI questions, you should treat it like your drunk friend at a bar, which is, there's just going to be some stuff that comes out there that you might not be able to trust, but there is some good information through that. So it's the trust but verify approach. I think it's really important to remember that and remember that that's part of ChatGPT, AI, and what have you.
So we should be thinking about it as the folks we're meeting at the bar at Cannes.
I think it's a really good point, though. It's a good stimulus, right? It's a good kind of jumping off point. I mean, you see creators use it as, I have this idea, give me some inputs that I can use to sort of flush it out. It's like the Jay-Z lyric, you made a hot line, I made a hot song, right? So it's like it provides good stimuli, but it's required for the creator, the writer, the creative director, the copywriter, the art director, to be able to extract that and give it meaning.
And it's a great point, Marcus, and you've spent a lot of time in your life with creators. Can you talk about just what this means for them from just a creativity standpoint, as you touched on, but also a compensation standpoint and an intellectual property standpoint?
So just like all new technology is going to require new legislation, right? Like when the internet came out, it required new legislation when it comes to IP. Who really owns it? Who has a right to it? And who can distribute it? So that needs to happen, and that discourse is going to take place for sure. But I think that just like all technology, which at its core is a man-made means to extend human behavior, that technology is meant to help us get better at a thing. And I think there is a bit of like purity that we think about creative and say, are you really the writer if it came from AI? And it's like, well, like people who made who made music using beat machines, drummers were like, you're not a real drummer. That's not a real beat. And hip hop, which I'm a part of that culture of consumption, like it's all about taking sources that already exist and reworking it and refashioning it. And you mean to tell me like Q-Tip isn't a real musician or isn't a real producer? So I think that like we have to remove a little bit of the purity of creativity and think about these catalysts as one step forward to help us extend human behavior.
Oh, that's great. I love that analogy. And James, shifting gears a little bit, you measure the impact of storytelling, right? So that's what you do. And do you think how is AI going to change that? Change both, I think I'll ask two questions. Change storytelling, and then also change how we measure it.
Well, we're really excited about what it can do, as Marcus was saying, and Barbara, to support the process of creativity. I think there's a lot of fear that it will replace it. But I think any technology makes people with great ideas able to execute those ideas in greater volume and more easily. So I think for a start we get more ideas, and when we're the folks testing and proving the impact of them, I think the reason that's exciting is you can take more risks. If you've got to make one thing and it takes a long time, you're not going to take as many risks. But we've all had crazy ideas and wondered, would they fly? Would they lift consumer, intent? So now there's a chance to do that more easily. Try it out. Of course, we test it so we can prove some ideas will work, some won't. So I'm excited about that. On the Swayable side, we're also immediately using AI not to replace human judgment or input, but actually to draw more judgment and more feedback from people. So some of the most exciting experiments at Swayable right now are using some of these interactive techniques that the chatbots now and the LLMs, large language models, can support to just ask consumers more questions. At the end of the day, we're talking to thousands of them very quickly, and using that to understand if the creative works. So now when they say it doesn't, or it does, they like it, they don't like it, we can say, hey, why? Or you said this, what did you mean by that? And we get this richer information from the consumer. So it's not replacing it, it's getting more of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as I've observed over the week, there's this confluence of AI, trust, customer connection, creator content that's all coming together. And the one thing that seems true is the closer you are to customers, that's the only way to navigate this, right? I mean, it's the only way to make it through. And I had an article a few years ago titled, Will the Bots Love Your Customers? And I think that, one of the big imperatives is like, how do we create customer-loving bots, right? And so I think what you're describing is something that Swayable can help with.
I think it's such a good point you're making there, that ultimately, like we ask the question, who needs humans? Like we need them, us, to make meaning. Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately, it requires a certain level of intimacy to understand that for some, a cow is leather, for others it's a deity, and for some it's dinner. Well, which one is it? It depends on the person and your ability to extract meaning from it. And I don't, at least not in our current time, today, or even in the near future, will AI get us there. It'll get us closer, right? I mean, James is making a business off of that very thing, getting us much, much closer, but it still requires us as the instrument to translate meaning, which we will call insights.
Yeah, and it's a great point, and it makes me think, Barbara, of something you were talking to me about, which was, in the newsroom, you could run away from this, and you could say, no AI, no innovation, or you could embrace it in the right way. And how are you thinking about it?
Oh yeah, this is, so I actually saw some survey data in the last month where it asked folks, are you excited about AI? Are you afraid of AI? And it was about a third of people said that they were afraid, and about 50% said they were both afraid and excited. And you really think about AI and, companies that are afraid of innovation or what's new, they're not here anymore. Mm-hmm. It's the companies that embrace innovation, who embrace change, who embrace the future, that not only succeed, but that they thrive. So at Insider, very much in our DNA and how we grow and how we move forward. So specifically for the newsroom, what I love is it's easy for a creator to be very afraid of something that might, displace them. Mm-hmm. It can do my job. But our global editor-in-chief of Insider, what he did was he just utilized ChatGPT every day, figured out what it could help him with, what it could help our journalists with, and he went out there and he said, hey, this thing is great. It helps me do my job faster and better, and here's how I used it, and I want you to try too. And what's really important about that is it was an extension for them, meaning our journalists could spend their time on the highest value use of it, and then use it for things that, they shouldn't be spending their time on, or shortcutting things or what have you. So it very much has been a tool for journalists, a tool for creators, and something that really drives efficiency.
I mean, if you look at it, the Greek philosophers argued that the written word was going to make people dumb. Like, we've always been afraid of technology because new is hard, change is hard. But to Barbara's point, like, they help us do more.
Yeah. Yes, and I would also add too that it's a really great skill and rare and important skill to have, to know how to utilize ChatGPT and AI. It's something that the people who are embracing it will be able to use that tool and take creation and what they're doing to next levels. So they shouldn't be afraid. Should check it out and try it.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I mean, I think we're all telling our kids to become prompt writers. But James, I want to turn to you. Seriously, what's the job of the future? Right now, it's prompt writing. But James, I want to turn to you on that point because so much of this does go back to values and trust. Because this technology is only as good as the humans that are ultimately in control of it, right? And so if we think about it all being based on data, and you spend a lot of time looking at data and looking at the impact of data on individual opinion, is there such a thing as neutral data? And
Oh, that's a great question. Look, I don't think there's any activity you can undertake that doesn't have the basis some values behind it. The people in an organization are doing the thing for a certain reason, set of goals, and underlying that some values. So if the data is coming out of an experiment, out of a platform, I think in that regard, there are values underlying it. What they've chosen to focus on, what they've checked the most, what they have checked less. And I think we're really going through this transformation where 5-ish years ago, not even that long ago, the idea about a data platform, really any tech company, was, you don't really need to worry too much about the values. Don't sort of ask too many questions. Just sort of cash the checks and, do the work. And I think people are starting to realize that can lead you down some dark roads if you're not careful. That a media organization, a media distributing platform or a data platform really has to say what it's about. Why is it there? Will it do anything? Will anything get posted or not? And I think if you've got answers to those questions, those answers are your values, and people should ask for them.
so I guess the follow-up I'd have to ask is objectivity a thing? Does it exist?
I think it exists as an ideal.
Yeah.
I think we can never know that we're objective, but I think trying is a lot different than not trying.
And Marcus, I mean, you study culture, so what would you say there?
I was going to fully agree.
Yeah.
Like, the world is inherently meaningless, right? That is, there's no objectivity. Things happen, but the way we experience them and translate them is based on our cultural lenses, right? Mm-hmm. The world is subjective. We give things meaning, and therefore, because we give things meaning as we observe phenomenon in the social world in which we live in, we have to understand how those people translate it if we are to understand them. Whether it's the stories that we tell, the campaigns we put in the world, the music that we make, the poetry that we create, and all the other cultural production that we put in the world requires just ridiculous, radical intimacy so that we're able to understand the subjective that exists in how people see the world.
It really strikes me that this concept of trust is going to be even more important, and that customers are going to, the winners are going to be the ones whose customers truly believe that what they're getting and what they're doing is in their best interest. We have such a great group here. I want to leave a few minutes for questions. Really great insights here. Are there folks here that have some specific questions for our panelists? Any questions?
Don't all rush forward at once.
Yeah. Yes. Can you? Do we have? I don't know that we have a mic. I can really fulfill my dreams to be a talk show.
You're right. That's great.
Well done.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well done.
Hello. Okay, you can hear me. Hi. This is mainly for Dr. Marcus, but I really do want to hear everyone's point of view. With AI, there is the question of ownership and how that can be managed because especially, Dr. Marcus, you understand from the point of view of culture, the people that own the culture or really influence and create the culture never really get the ownership rights. How can we avoid or mitigate that?
So you're absolutely true, absolutely correct. Typically, people who don't have power, they don't have ownership of their cultural production. It is easily conquested, reworked, and then exploited, which feels like it's even ripe to do that even more in an AI world where there's no regulation of sorts, which is even more the reason why it needs to have regulation and more reason why we need to have conversations about said regulation. If not, not only will we repeat what is currently happening, it will be actually quite worse. That's the only answer I have. I mean, it's something I think that's not actually a part of the discourse that should be. Like, that's not a part of the rhetoric. It's really about who owns the IP as opposed to who owns the cultural expression of a group of people. There's a guy named Tommy Johns who you should check out. And he's talking about how do you quantify the exploitation of other people's cultural production. And he should be at the center of that conversation when it comes to AI, for sure.
I would just add that two of the biggest creators that were here this week that I saw, will.i.am and Tinks, they both were terrified. I mean, you could almost see it in their eyes and about the need to regulate and preserve the creative side of this and the rights to the creators.
I mean, we did it with MP3s, right? Once the modality changed, it requires new legislation. It's necessary.
Probably have time for one or maybe two more questions.
Hello, hi. It's kind of linked to that first question, actually. I was speaking to someone earlier about Gen Alpha and them being the first generation that will have parents as influencers. And so a lot of them, post their children online without their consent. And so as a result of that, do you think that there are going to be any behaviors that you see change with that generation? I'll give us as an example, millennials, of which I am. We sort of gave our data to Facebook and Instagram because we wanted access to the apps, So we gave our data away. Our parents probably are having their data stolen or hacked or something right now. So what behaviors do you see that Gen Alphas are going to start to embody as a result of that?
James, you got some data on that, right? This is so James.
Oh yeah, I think it's actually a healthy trend as you go from the older to the younger generations. I used to work at New York Times, and we were constantly worried about our readers aging out. And when we started to survey them, what we noticed was actually the younger folks read more diversely. They were much less likely to think what I thought when I was a kid, and certainly my parents did, that the way you learn about the world is the newspaper gets thrown over your fence in the morning, and you pick it up, and over your Weet-Bix, you read what's happening in the world. And younger millennials, Gen Z, the later generations, never think that way. When you're in a kind of an older, media company, I think that may look like a sort of a competition for your share of mind. But I think as a society, it's a healthier way to think about diverse perspectives. You probably don't know what's going on unless you've heard from a few different views of the world. And I think that continues. And I think the influencer sort of, content sort of world is really a more authentic way of contributing to that broader ecosystem of a healthier, diverse set of, things to read and watch.
Probably one more question.
Handy, gotta get on the job.
Do we get the mic?
Thanks. So I'll share with you an experience that I had recently to try and turn it into a question. So I was using ChatGPT in a situation where I needed to write an email. I didn't quite enough time to write a full email that it deserved to be, but I knew that I needed to convey quite complex pieces, and so it wasn't just a two-liner. So I used ChatGPT in order to help me write this email, and it did do a fantastic job of doing this. And I sent it out to the folks who needed to receive it. And, it was great, job done. later on in that same day, somebody sent me a very verbose email, which I didn't have time to process, so I asked ChatGPT to summarize this for me. And it struck me like,
There's a
wow.
cartoon about this.
That, like, what is, and I guess what it did was it called into question, like, this existing paradigm of the effort taken to write a full point of view, you know, a developed point of view for somebody to consume, because you've given it the respect of time or something of that ilk. I'm not really sure what it is, but it put that in the spotlight for me, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So is this, I feel like that paradigm isn't being talked about enough, and I'm kind of interested how you feel about it.
So, ooh, this is loud. So first off, well done. You are utilizing ChatGPT in a way that is making things easier and faster. I think it's just very clear at this point that ChatGPT AI is going to revolutionize and completely change the way we take in information, we share information, you know, back and forth, and really seek information out. So I would just say that what you've done, it will continue to iterate over time and evolve to the point where it's incredibly efficient to get whatever information that you're trying to get out there and then get something back. I think it all also, hopefully, I mean, this is the hope for all of us, that allows us to spend time on the things that are more meaningful, and spend time, you know, seeking out the information that is more, you know, of depth, of you know, expertise in different areas, and it will kind of really take over a lot of the commoditized and very quick back and forth that we'll have to have. So we're gonna see a ton of really disruption, but also innovation in that space.
Well, I think that's all the time we have today. Thank you all so much for coming. Thanks to our terrific panelists. And I think the takeaway is trust is critical. Know the people you're dealing with, values, and embrace innovation. Excellent. Oh, sure. Of course. Oh, one more picture. Okay. Do you have time, Barbara?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, here.
Yeah, you were excellent.